The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Everything Sequel podcast.
Everything Sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Joining me, the man who's taking me to the Detroit Red Wings hockey game, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
And then 94, not your finest hour.
See, direct reference. Not only to what happens in Beverly Hills Cop 3, but the fact that the movie sucks.
And the two major problems with this stream, I refuse to call it a movie, in a nutshell. Metatextual references that make no sense in world, and inability to acknowledge the canon as a whole.
It's a reference.
It's a reference to how bad the movie was. In world, it was his finest hour.
Oh, I don't know.
Remember, he had a cartoon fox named after him.
He shot a gun in front of children.
It makes no sense. What actually, the events of that movie represent the best police work Axel Foley's ever done, regardless of what you think about the movie. And this is the problem of IP cinema.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All IP cinema has one or both of these problems.
I can't disagree with you there, but
going back to Dial of Destiny, Marion and Indy reenacting a moment on a moment on a boat
would have absolutely forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah. Early onset dementia has taken care of that memory. It's there for our benefit only.
All right, fine. All right,
well, I gotta come in strong because you already stole my Vera from Cheers argument. So
yes,
that was going to be the backbone of my case.
Of your argument?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd even rehearsed it like a real lawyer. If a guest, if an episode director of Cheers suddenly just said, and Vera comes in, and then she starts talking to everyone,
whoa.
And we get a good close-up of her, you would think that director is incompetent and does not understand what he's doing.
The closest they get in Cheers is that Thanksgiving episode where she,
gets
hit with a pie in the face.
Yeah, she's hit with a pie in the face. Yeah, I mean, it's we'll talk about it, but it's a dying, if not completely dead, convention, and I wonder whether it's deemed politically incorrect to make women invisible. I mean, when you put it like that, it makes total sense.
Yeah, right. Yes, it does sound bad when you say it like that.
But it's one of the great running gags in several sitcoms.
Frasier too, yeah.
Cheers. There's a couple of British sitcoms that do it. Dad's Army. The main character.
Dad's Army.
Captain Mannering has an invisible wife. Minder, which is one of my favorite TV shows. And not only in Minder-ish does the main character have a wife we never see. She's referred to by him as her indoors. She's never referred to by name, only as her indoors. So that's probably why you don't see that convention anymore.
True. But it is a funny convention. It does work.
Yeah.
And it really struck me in this movie this time. I didn't remember that happened the first time I watched it, but when it came up this time, I was like, what the fuck are we doing seeing Maureen?
And I even tried to anticipate counter arguments that when it has been done in stuff that I like,
where it worked,
like Twin Peaks: The Return. Diane, who was never seen in the original series, in Twin Peaks: The Return, first of all, played by Laura Dern, so there's no letdown in terms of the actual actor playing the character. But also, the whole idea is she's a cipher because she's like one of those people created in the lodge from a ball bearing to move the plot along, like Dougie. So it's it's good. David Lynch is sort of playing with the convention while simultaneously upending it.
Well, on that we can agree.
No such commentary here.
No,
it's just there's Maureen.
Yes, there's Maureen.
After
Whole
all
new
this
set
time.
built. I don't understand. I don't understand why he can't be in a squad car or something else you've already used. His office to get that phone call. Very funny.
It is unintentionally so.
Well, our business corner will be short. Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
How many people saw it?
Yeah, a 2024 stream with 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, Tom.
Thank you for calling it a stream.
So people liked it. Directed by
Say
Mark
that again,
Malloy.
sorry?
What's that?
Say that number again, sorry.
67%.
Yeah, that's people settling. That's a settling number.
I don't think it's a settling number. I think it's, well, maybe it is. I don't know. To me it's
good enough.
I think it's a partial reaction to this shouldn't be good at all. Hang on, be quiet. People expect it to be terrible, and they found it to not be terrible, and therefore reviewed it positively.
I would counter that people don't know the distinction anymore when it comes to IP cinema.
You might be right.
They've been worn down
by cinema, yeah.
with the point they're simply presenting the material that you've already seen in a way that is non-controversial is now deemed as good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think there's a lowering of the bar, and I don't know. Like 67% says to me, "Yeah, but what are you gonna do?" It's an acceptance. They're gonna make it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make it. We're gonna watch it. Nobody has a say in this movie existing.
Well, I got to tell you, I rewatched a few. I had a 3-movie watch last night.
Ooh.
And 2 of them were from the 90s, The Firm and Good Will Hunting.
Oh, I thought you were gonna do all Hackman.
No, I've been sporadically peppering
Yeah.
Hackman in here and there.
That's the way to do it. I've watched so many movies now. I can't watch a movie without him anymore.
Yeah,
because I'm just
seems
expecting.
wrong.
Yeah, I'm expecting Gene Hackman to be somewhere in my movie now.
Well, I got to tell you, as I was watching The Firm, and of course it's directed by Sidney Pollack.
Sure.
So say what you want about the movie, but it's solidly made.
It is, yeah.
And
I mean,
it's so satisfying.
It's a pile of junk, but it's solidly made.
It's so satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
A solidly made movie, and of course, I didn't like that because I knew it would work against my arguments for this movie, and
oh, good.
Trying
at least you recognize that.
Work
I was worried there
against
for
you.
a second. You were gonna compare Mark Malloy to Sidney Pollack for a second there.
So that brings
I might have had
us
to take issue with that.
That does bring us to Mark Malloy, who we already mentioned once, has directed nothing. I just wrote nothing up there.
Nothing.
And along with nothing that Mark Malloy has made, I also wrote nothing for money. No money. And Netflix is not going to disclose to me how many people have watched it or streamed it.
Wait.
So we have no information.
But then how does that information get out then if it's not publicly available?
It doesn't.
But you hear it.
No, you hear generalizations. You hear the most watched show on Netflix.
This is why we need regulate, like sound like young guns now.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking regulators, but not those kind of regulators.
Regulators.
I mean, like this is why broadcast television has that accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can literally turn around and go, you can't cancel this program. Look at how many people are watching.
Yeah.
The program makers are powerless now. If Netflix can keep that can hide that information and maybe not even track it in the first place.
Oh, they definitely track it. They just don't tell anybody about it.
See, I watched the Gene Hackman movie, Enemy of the State, and you sound like one of those people right now, too. Oh, they're watching. Everybody's watching all of the time. It's just that the internet hasn't been invented yet, so we all have to walk around and put floppy disks inside.
What do you think about
slots to make it happen?
We shouldn't be going off on tangents so soon, but what
No,
do you...
and especially because I've only watched an hour of it, right? Gene Hackman has just arrived in the movie.
Well, as you watch it, there at the time it came out, a lot of people started talking about, this could really be his character from The Conversation.
Well, that's where it applies to us, I think, is along with The Rock,
mm-hmm.
the movie, not
yes.
The Rock himself, not the wrestler / actor. It's sort of it's identified as a spiritual sequel.
Yeah,
to a character that actor would play. But I think that's putting the cart before the horse, really, because it's like that. Yeah, they cast him because he played that character, but he doesn't necessarily mean he's that character.
No, yeah, it's just a happy, nice coincidence.
He's got the same glasses. I mean, that's the only compelling evidence so far. He's, from what I've seen so far, he's a lot more forthright than I remember Harry Cole being in The Conversation. And no saxophone. I don't know if that matters, but last time we saw him, he had a saxophone, so I assume every time we see him subsequently, he's got a saxophone with him.
His guy in Enemy of the State doesn't seem to have much time for a saxophone in his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, we're not here to talk about real movies. We're here to talk about Axel F.
That's a low dig to start with.
It is, and that's a low dig comparing it to Enemy of the State, which is a real movie that doesn't necessarily seem like a real movie. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
That's one where I was excited to see it and then thought to myself, oh, this guy, Tony Scott, seems to have problems.
Well, that's it. So it is relevant because you were saying in our Beverly Hills Cop 2 episode, you like Tony Scott to have a cage, and that is Tony Enemy of the State's Tony Scott without a cage, without a leash.
No, yeah, he's no leash. He's going nuts.
And I see what you mean. It's too much.
Too much
fucking Tony Scott. Too much fucking Tony Scott.
Well, I suppose there's not much argument for seeing that Netflix logo first.
Yeah, the worst part is it should just be the Netflix logo you see when you turn on Netflix, but they've tried to kind of pimp it up a little bit to try and make it look kind of cinematic. And I think that's what really offends me, because it's
funny, the first time I saw it I liked it to open up Netflix.
It's so weird because I remember now I think in 2025 we're kind of past the kind of crossover point where, like, readily now Netflix productions win Oscars. They're movies are celebrated without it going anywhere near a movie theater. And because I remember several years ago there was a limited release for El Camino, the Breaking Bad spin-off movie with Pinkman, and I remember the cognitive dissonance of going into a movie theater and then the Netflix logo comes up. But that's that cognitive dissonance is kind of is important to remind you you're not actually watching a film.
Yeah, right.
I think it needs to do at the very least that, but I guess the discussion at the Oscars this year was all about was trying to reclaim cinema from streaming, because they're now pretty much indistinguishable.
I think in most people's minds, yes.
Yeah. So first digital came, and then streaming came, and suddenly the idea of what a film is becomes very complicated.
Yeah.
No, I guess that's not necessarily a slight against this film. It's just that I think to pretend that it's cinema is misleading.
Yeah, I can't. Oh man, it's so hard because I have no choice but to agree with you. But and it's funny because if you're gonna take the time to bring Eddie Murphy back and dip into IP cinema and try to bring a big bold character that we all loved from a few decades ago back, it just seems like Tom Cruise. You weren't watching Top Gun Maverick at home on your fucking television set. It was in a theater, and it was made to be in theaters.
Except this, I think even the people making the movie knows it's not good enough to grace the inside of a theater as well.
See, I don't think they know that, and it's got 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I think they think they've made a good film.
Okay.
I think it's a 50% plus 0.01 to barely make it good.
Okay. Well, I'm willing to hear where that 50% is. Or that, I suppose, more accurately, where that 0.01%. Yeah, 0.01. Wow.
Yeah, a sliver. But it was nice to see the Simpson and Bruckheimer picture and logo back.
I find that weird because one of them's dead.
True.
Is it okay to be carting his name around still on Simpson? I mean, presumably it's the estate of Don Simpson.
I would assume so, and they give permission, I imagine.
They give permission, but I mean, we've seen this before with, I guess, I suppose it's better than what Blake Edwards did after Peter Sellers dies, where Sellers Edwards Entertainment became Blake Entertainment Edwards.
Yes.
So I withdraw that. So, respect for the dead is clearly not a common aspect of cinema, so where you see it, you should.
There you go.
You should enjoy it.
Well, we're going to go straight to credits along with the song from the original Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, and it's done, I thought, quite cleverly as a sort of needle drop on a radio station, which kind of gives them the deniability for playing a song from 40 years ago.
Yeah, right.
That it's they don't say it's an oldie station, but you presume it's an oldie station. It gives you the deniability of that, at least.
Funny you
but
bring
then they
up
completely abandon that device.
Huh?
But then they completely abandon that device, and then suddenly the needle drops are just needle drops.
Yeah.
So they should have done a K-Billy Super Sounds of the 70s.
Yeah.
But I guess it would be Super Sounds of the 80s.
Yeah,
and then they could have got Stephen Wright, and wasn't he involved with SNL? I'm already making a better movie.
All right, calm down a little bit. I think you're banging around in that closet of yours.
Like a hockey fan. And
all right,
he comes sort of pre-made as Axel Foley IP because he's already in the outfit.
Yes.
Right? We don't even have a moment where he gets the jacket on, which we've had in all the previous movies, right?
Well, he doesn't even have that jacket in the first movie. That's a
but
convention of the sequel.
That's because no one cares enough to tell him to put it on, I think, is the...
No, it's because...
In 3.
He could never afford that jacket. In real life.
Oh, I mean his Letterman jacket.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like a $500 jacket. I used to sell those.
What?
Yeah.
What?
At that time.
I had no idea. Wait. Now, to the outside eye, it doesn't seem expensive. that looks cheap.
Well, they were about $500. Wow. Yeah.
Do you have to be American and into sports to pay that much? Because
yeah,
to me it looks like trash clothes.
Oh, I found this one at a dumpster on K Street.
Okay, wow. Well, anyway, he comes. He's
what's funny is
he's an action figure, basically. He arrives as an action figure.
But I also always thought it always made sense to me in Beverly Hills Cop 2 because he'd gone to Beverly Hills. He got a little taste of what nice things look like.
Well, they just offset it a little bit, and he starts off undercover wearing the nice suit and the nice car, and then when he gets to LA, he puts the Letterman jacket on. I mean, there's a logic to it there. This is just let's take the Axel Foley action figure out of the box. He can't take that jacket off because he's an action figure.
All right, I got questions for you. Speaking about...
Is one of them wasn't Axel Foley an undercover cop? Because that's my question.
That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So you just hang on and settle down. I think your argument against this movie and IP cinema is based strictly on your hate of IP cinema. I think if it was any other movie... I've heard you say, I can't think of a specific example right now, so that's not very good on my part.
You can't fill your argument completely with generalizations. You have to come up with an example at some point.
I have heard you say it's very smart for this movie to just know that time has passed, and so this, and that has happened. Axel Foley has been in enough shit. Just because you have been an undercover cop doesn't mean you're forever an undercover cop.
But in the movie should speak to that, and it doesn't speak to that. It comes in as if this is how Axel Foley is always... This is how Axel Foley in Detroit always is.
No, I don't think it's saying that.
I'd be more open to that argument if the time has passed and suddenly... He's known to everyone in the city.
That's because he's always on the front page of the newspapers and cigarette trucks and other nonsense.
We run into the problem that we're going to have in Lethal Weapon 5. How old can police officers be before they retire?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember you saying once Danny Glover was retiring in Lethal Weapon.
In the first one.
Right. So how are they going to address this here? And they don't address it. So they're not concerned about time passing and things changing. They have just it's a straight up misremembering of Axel Foley because no one gives a shit. No one's talked to anyone who has anything to do with the series.
I don't think it has to stick in your craw quite so much though. He's moved on from undercover work.
This is all headcanon. You're doing all the work for them. They're not doing this work.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you on that. I understand.
Well, then... Yeah, but...
But why do they have to tell me?
Because he's an undercover cop. Why, if James Bond was suddenly not a spy... I know that's kind of what happens in No Time to Die, but I have problems with that movie, too. If James Bond suddenly wasn't a spy, you deserve an explanation as a viewer. It's just, but it's the thing is, it's the beginning of a pattern of the reference and the actor is gonna supplant the character and the story.
All right,
and the world we're building.
That's fine.
Every single time, every time they get a chance to make a reference to either the actor or the series, they will compromise the fictional world in order to do that every single time, and that's how IP cinema rolls, and that is why it is an artistically redundant form of cinema.
I know that you have legitimate points, so I'm just trying to undercut them as best I can.
Well,
and let the jury sort it out.
You're just trying to plant reasonable doubt.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's all I need. It's it might not be O.J. Simpson's DNA. There's there's a 0.1 chance that it's not.
Exactly.
And suddenly that's an important distinction. Yeah. And then we go to a hockey game. Now you're
Red Wings.
You're the sports fan here. When you think Detroit, do you think Red Wings?
Constantly.
Are you just saying that
No.
because you know I'm going to come after you for this?
No, I genuinely think.
Okay. Because as a non-sports fan, it says to me, okay, so we don't have the auto industry anymore for our establishing shots, or, you know, an economy, or really a city to show. Detroit doesn't really exist anymore in any meaningful sense.
No, it's coming back a little bit.
A little bit, that's true. It's not like it was in Karate Kid 2010, that's for sure, where you had to move to China to get away from it.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's literally crumbling to the point where you have to go as far away as you possibly can to escape the debris.
No, the Red Wings are definitely high traffic in that city. They care, like, the Red Wings were really the only good sports team they had consistently until they stopped being good right around 2000. But they
what
won.
What are the other teams, the Tigers and Lions?
Tigers, Lions, Pistons. The Pistons have sporadic success. Yeah, couple of championships, late 80s, 90, and then 2004-ish. But the Lions have sucked forever until the last couple years. And then the Tigers, you know, every once in a while they pop up in a World Series and then they go to shit again. This is the city that my dad was born in.
Oh, interesting.
Not born in, but grew up in. And so I've grown up a Detroit sports fan my whole life.
Oh, wow. We need to get you... Well, they don't have guests, but we need to get you on Trading Places Minute because... which is co-hosted by Tom Taylor, but the other hosts, Mike DiMaria and Dan Lewis, are Tigers fans. They're always talking about Tigers, and I'm basically Tom. I am the Tom, not just because my name is the same as Tom on that group, because he just has to sit there and
take it.
And if he tries to say anything, he gets shouted down. So not like on this podcast.
Shut up. We're talking sports here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, to me, as an outsider to this, it felt very dystopian to me. Like there was nothing left in Detroit but a hockey stadium.
No.
So we have to film there. But you're telling me
they call it an arena.
That's a misperception. Okay.
2, small anecdote. I went to Detroit as a kid, maybe 10 years old. Saw the first game at Joe Louis Arena. So that was fun. Now they're in another arena. But also, whenever it's playoff time and the Red Wings score a goal, an octopus will find its way onto the ice. They just chuck them onto the ice.
Like a mascot. You're not talking about a real octopus.
No, I'm talking a real octopus. They just throw octopus onto the ice.
Still?
Yes.
You know how smart octopuses are?
Yeah.
That's like throwing Stephen
too.
Hawking out onto the ice.
I was just listening to a Ricky Gervais podcast. Carl Pinkett just brought up Stephen Hawking and said, yeah, but he's already there, right? He's got like his little box and he's sort of always on the internet. Isn't that right?
He's always on the internet. That's right, yeah.
Very good.
And he's pretentious for using an American accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, back to the movie. What do you think of the white guilt scene? Or
I like
commentary.
The twist on what,
because I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, the idea that you can use wokeness to fuck with white people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good use of the.
I also liked it because it was the first time I could even remember seeing anything like that used for the sake of comedy in a movie.
Yeah.
As though we've been afraid of doing it. And I like that this movie does it a couple of times.
And it takes it all the way back to the race comedy of Richard Pryor, because, you know, Richard Pryor was his idol.
Mm-hmm.
he has that great stand-up routine about doing Richard Pryor stand-up impersonations when he was 10 years old, but he has no life experience, so they're all about things like wiping his ass.
Yeah.
And then he does a Richard Pryor's take on the toilet paper getting stuck and that kind of thing. Because he does the white guy voice, which
right.
Richard Pryor, you ever see him whenever he's addressing, he's observing white people in the audience. As like I can't remember which movie it is, one of his stand-up movies, but there's like a white family coming in late and trying to find their seats. And he's going, "Oh, excuse me, yes, I think you're sitting in."
All right, man, I played my seat.
And the guy just leaning back with, "Well, there are seats now." So yeah, I like that interplay. Obviously, you already know what I think about the fanboy police part.
Fanboy police part is not good.
Don't need to relitigate that. Syndrome of modern franchise fiction. And again, it's about, he's an Eddie Murphy fan.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with Axel Foley again. So this is the second time in a matter of minutes that we've jettisoned the fictional world for the sake of doing metatextual references.
Yeah.
And not the last time either. But yeah, I did think this is a good angle on wokeness, using it for comic purposes.
All right, good.
To sort of demystify it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, exactly as you said, like, maybe not demystifying, destigmatizing it as something that can be dealt with comedically, which it absolutely can. Like, any subject can be dealt with comedically if done correctly.
If done right, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like I don't think the movie necessarily commits to this, but I did get you mentioned Top Gun Maverick already, and I did get a kind of Top Gun Maverick feel that we were going to have the Tom Cruise approach of Axel is better than he ever was. Like...
Oh, yeah.
In Top Gun Maverick, it begins with him breaking the sound barrier or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And...
Yeah, right.
and the idea is, it's like, no, he's improved over time. So there's not, but I think they walk that back a little, and then they confuse it a little bit. But certainly at this point, the idea of Axel Foley as an elderly person is not recognized.
I agree.
Yeah. And Riser rises again.
Yeah, he does. Now, this doesn't bother me too much because his character from the previous movies seems like a bad enough cop that would sort of sit in the middle and just sort of by accident raise
a lot of work for them.
Raised to middle management.
So much work. So much work. Because I know how much you loved it when Walter Peck was the mayor in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
No. Did not.
But that's the same trajectory.
No, he didn't even have anything to do with politics, really.
Yeah, he was in the EPA.
All right, fine, EPA, but I mean, he's just like a bean counter.
I can say the same about here. He's just a cop and not a very good one. Why would he end up chief? Anyway. And the fact that this movie does the same thing in Beverly Hills shows me that they actually don't understand that could be done differently with different characters. It's just like, okay, time has passed, so these guys are now one level up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. Tag us in a position of power, rise in a position of power. That's what happens with age. People get promoted.
Yeah, when you make a sequel, you always have to try and balance new characters and old characters, or legacy characters. And if you're going to bring in legacy characters, you want to bring in the people that people like. Who are the people that people like? They liked Inspector Todd. Okay, he's dead. And we didn't include Jeffrey in the last movie, and everybody likes Jeffrey. Let's bring Jeffrey back.
Yeah.
And I think it's as simple as that.
And Salah can be a New York taxi driver.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's all part of the same
I'm telling you,
ball of problems.
So, but I think there's degrees, and this one doesn't bother me as much as Salah does.
Well, at least they still have the same basic job.
Mm-hmm.
That's a going back to the Walter Peck example.
That one is more egregious to me because he's too unlikable to be elected as mayor.
We have a pretty unlikable president right now. I don't know. I hate to break it to you. He's not a people person.
Well,
you heard how he talked to Zelensky?
I agree with you.
I don't know, but by the way, I don't know what my argument is at this point.
He's likable to 70 million people in this country, actually.
I'm arguing for the legitimacy of Walter Peck as the mayor of Frozen Empire, which is the worst story decision ever made in a fucking Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie. But this is part of the same bowl of problems, but not as.
Let me put it to you this way: I think putting Walter Peck in that movie is really shoehorning it in. Having Jeffrey still working at the police department isn't as big a shoehorn to me.
Yeah. But it's not just working there, is it? You tried to slip that one by me. He's in charge. That's the difference. That's what I was. You almost had me for a second there. You almost had me, you motherfucker.
I got you. I had you.
Almost had you. You may fold under questioning.
As I said, I think it's easy to imagine a middle-of-the-road cop like that guy just sort of rising in the ranks. Because he doesn't piss anybody off. He just stays out of trouble.
All right. That's some work. It's not. You're not doing all the work, but you are doing some work. That's a part-time work you're doing there. Yeah, and then we're already into track 2 of the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack. So
yeah,
they're literally the soundtrack. They're playing the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack.
Yeah, right.
Like they just put the CD in and then played it over the movie. It sounds like. And by CD, I, of course, mean Spotify playlist.
Of course.
And so they've already abandoned the pretense of it always being a song on the radio, which I think is hilarious, having set that up and then just needle drops after needle drops. Well, I think we've already talked about the photo of the chief on the wall, and again, wouldn't happen.
No.
Long forgotten.
Well, not to those two characters, though, but they still probably, I don't think they'd have his picture on the wall.
No. That just, yeah. Or, like I said in the previous episode, I can't remember which one, there should be more pictures of more chiefs if you want to sell this idea. Right. You can't just be him.
What other dead chiefs do you have on your wall?
Yeah.
Oh, just the one we know.
So, Reiser's going to retire.
He's kind of forced out because of Foley.
He says that, but he's also using it as an excuse to retire, and he's talking to Axel about why he doesn't retire, and this is a foreshadow of this conversation we're going to have in Lethal Weapon 5 if Danny Glover doesn't die before it happens.
Yeah,
and or Mel Gibson, I guess, with his lifestyle, but. It's sort of the conversation always goes nowhere because there's nothing you can do with it. And, I'll bring in stuff I actually like here with Star Trek is the same thing. You always have to fudge that scene about Kirk retiring.
Yeah, right.
Every single time, and you just have to play along a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you're gonna enjoy the movie on any level.
Well, if we make it so that he's coming back from searching for Spock and then something happens, we can have a whole other movie. And then at the end of that movie, we'll promote him.
Well, that's it. I mean, essentially, he
or demote to promote.
It's a training mission that goes awry. Then he steals the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Then he goes back in time.
Yes.
Then he finds God. And then he's playing ambassador in the last one. So yeah. I think they covered their tracks with that perfectly well.
Yes, of course. You're so willing to forgive the movies that you like more.
Yeah, and then in Generations, he's just there to send off Captain Rook on his on his new mission.
Before he's cooking ostrich eggs.
Toast. Yeah. Axel now has a daughter. They talk about this.
Yeah.
And the first question I asked, which is a question you already alluded to in a previous episode, is this the woman from Beverly Hills Cop 3? I didn't put it as nicely as that. I said, is this the theme park security guard he fucked? But
that is less
I think
nice.
it's what we're all thinking, right? Because it's the only love interest he's had in any of the movies.
Again, I realize you don't want us doing the work
To enjoy myself, correct?
Yeah, but he's gonna have relationships outside of just what we've seen.
Yes,
on
that's true.
Screen.
I can't argue against that, but I'd just like to know one way or another. That's all.
All right.
If we're talking about an entirely different because they do. It's not just that they could just sort of leave the parentage kind of irrelevant. Basically, it's like he had a kid with someone. And again, this is the Eddie Murphy thing, because he's had kids with all kinds of women all over town, including Scary Spice from the Spice Girls.
What?
Yeah, he had a kid with Scary Spice from the Spice Girls.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So maybe it's a reference to that, but I feel like I don't know why they don't make it clear whether it's supposed to be her or just completely different. Like, what's the advantage of... And again, it's sort of like, don't want to piss off the fans by saying it's Beverly Hills Cop 3. And
no,
also don't want to not say that and look like we're not dealing with it. So let's just say nothing.
No, I literally think it's just not on their mind. I don't think they're thinking that much about it.
Well, no, they have you to do that. You do that job for them. They're making the viewer do that for them.
Yeah, I don't mind thinking. I'm okay with thinking. Thinking is fine.
But you can guide that thinking. Isn't that what cinema's supposed to do?
Yeah, sure.
You're not supposed to be thinking about, oh, those are nice curtains. I mean, it's supposed to be something that is awoken in you, not just... Is that gum on my seat? I mean, it's got to be something. But I'll say this. This is first and maybe only positive point about the movie. They made the connective tissue to LA stronger than it normally is.
Yeah,
because now he has a family member there, so that makes it a lot easier for him to go back to Beverly Hills.
This is not only that, but I think that's all informed because of what had happened to him in the past. To me, this movie, granted, you're going to come at me, so let me just preempt it by saying they're not outright saying this, but there's one conversation they have in the car that makes it seem as though Eddie Murphy deliberately brought his daughter out to Los Angeles because he knows people there that can keep an eye on her, and it was safer than Detroit.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's obviously clear that I think it happened the other way. Like, she went there anyway, and he was, he told Taggart and Rosewood to keep an eye on her, and they became like
family,
father figures to her.
Yeah.
But I don't think I don't think he had that level of control over her life.
Well, how old do you think she was when she moved to Beverly Hills?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the Pablo Hidalgo of this movie. I think
she's younger when he does that.
Do you think that they had a good relationship then?
Because she said something to him that made me think that mom and daughter moved out together, and he kind of made it seem like at some point he would go there. But then he's doing the Die Hard thing of I'm a New York cop.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
So
I'd like to have seen that. That's an interesting story.
As I was saying it, I was realizing, yeah, they do mention that dialogue in the Die Hard sequels, so I'm not doing myself any favors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what is clear is certainly that Rosewood and Jane are in cahoots, right? They give each other work, and they're. Although Rosewood, I don't know at what point they reveal Rosewood's a private detective, or if we only find that out when his apartment turns into a gumshoes office, but. They work together. Maybe even Rosewood is her investigator. Is that the implication?
No, because there's one moment where
that would have been a good.
Rosewood is talking to another cop, and he's like, "I thought you quit," and he said, "I didn't quit. I decided to leave."
Right, but he became an investigator because
Yeah.
it's Rosewood Investigations. But
Yeah.
That wasn't clear to me until I saw the sign.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where that information is given in the movie, aside from the sign.
I don't remember. But I tell you
anyway,
what, we've got a pretty good start. I think we should take a break.
Well, let's go out on a positive then, okay?
All right.
It's stronger than him having to go back for a vacation every fucking time.
Yes, that I agree with.
Yeah.
That's definitely a better part of the movie. Having the connective tissue of having a daughter there is much smarter.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that only is able to be brought up with the passage of time too. So
yeah, I suppose so.
All right, we'll stop right there. Chalk mark for chance. And we'll be right.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here talking Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. I haven't been keeping track of points, but
Look,
I'm the scrappy underdog.
I think our biggest disagreement is not over what IP cinema is. It's that you think this is a better example of IP cinema than I do.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
And I was racking my brain trying to think, is there any IP cinema I like? And, you do have to go quite far back, but...
Would you consider...
From Star Trek, the parts of The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Would you consider those last Screams IP cinema?
Well, I like those very much, so...
Because I like those a lot.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah, it's,
Because they're more IP cinema than they are just straight up sequel, right?
And yeah, but Scream is always fucking ahead of the game.
True.
Because it recognizes that we're about self-referentiality. IP cinema is about self-referentiality. It's a marriage made in heaven. Whereas most IP cinema is just chugging along, doing what it's doing.
What it does.
It has no sense of itself or idea of what it's doing.
On that point, I have to agree with you. It doesn't know what it's doing.
It's like Fred Willard in a Christopher Guest movie. All the things that make him the best thing about every Christopher Guest movie is what makes IP cinema suck. Because he has no awareness of... I was thinking about this today, his digression in Mighty Wind about the Put him in with the long hose on him. If he's got a long enough hose, he'll do well in prison. And it's like, that's what an IP cinema's doing. They got that level of Fred Willard obliviousness.
That's good. Well, we're gonna get our music montage of L.A. and he's gonna go to Billy's office, like you said.
I started calling it B. Hill's role.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's everything from the 80s version plus accounting for new technology and international money. It seemed to me as like, we need a woman with a jihad, and you know, we need to see cell phones and Waymos.
Yeah, I think because we also see so many.
God, cell phones weren't a thing in the last sequel.
I know, right?
That's fucking crazy. But Waymos takes it right up to 2025.
Yeah, definitely. Waymos.
The delivery version.
And all the sort of Richie Rich women with their dogs.
Mm-hmm.
That says something too.
Mm. And it's, I suppose as well, like in reference to what you were saying about the passage of time, Axel's going there because he's got two loved ones in peril.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie's playing two cards because it's Rosewood and his daughter.
Sure.
But they are kind of linked as well, so it's interesting. They could have got away with one or the other, but they're doing both.
Mm-hmm.
And Rosewood's... So this isn't Rosewood's apartment that we see in Beverly Hills Cop 2, except that it is.
No, he's clearly taken the Rambo First Blood Part 2 poster out of his home and put it in his office.
Yeah. You know what? This is where the movie really should have been smarter. And again, I don't think you get this from Mark Malloy. But they should have updated the poster to Last Blood.
Oh.
How amazing would it have been if the Rambo poster was now Last Blood? Because Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Rambo First Blood Part 2 are kind of the parallel, and this is parallel to that Last Blood.
You know what's funny?
In terms of the series. What?
Just today, I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but it was...
Oh, the director's cut?
No, it was an article.
Last Blood? Now with more racism.
Written by the writer of Last Blood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he had something like 10 rules. You know what? It was Axel F, because he was defending Axel F. He was talking about why it's a good sequel.
Of course he was.
And so
I do the same in his position.
First of all, he prefaced everything by saying, the only thing they kept from my script for Last Blood was the title. Everything else is not mine.
Huh.
But I really love sequel cinema, and I love the idea of how do you make a sequel good. And here are the 10 rules for how you make a sequel good. You're going to like this because you're chalking up points. I'm going to give you a gift right now. He kept, he laid out his rules, and then he applied them to Axel F. And he kept saying things like, I mean, this is like not strictly what happens, but it's more of a gimme in this sense. And he did that like 5 times.
Right.
Where he was sort of bullshitting his way through why this is a good sequel. It's pretty funny.
The 10 rules of anything genre is always bullshitting your way through. One of my favorite writers of all time, Elmore Leonard, I got his 10 rules of writing. It's 10 rules of writing Elmore Leonard novels.
Right.
It does not apply outside of that
anything
purview.
outside of his...
Yeah. It's always bullshitting your way through, but yeah, man, that's interesting.
I probably still have it.
I'm interested in the idea of of what Last Blood was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we talked about it on the episode we did, but the trailer made it look like Stallone's Unforgiven.
Yeah.
And the movie was not that.
It was not that at all.
But I'm tantalized by the idea that there was a script that was closer to that out there. Because that's the obvious thing to do with Rambo.
Okay. One of the rules was the villain has to get better and better, not worse and worse. He says, The villains in Beverly Hills Cop movies are never that outstanding. For these movies, the villains aren't the point. It's all about Axel using his wits and humor to solve the case. So the movie gets a pass on this one.
Is this... one of these is written by Dr. Jekyll, the other Mr. Hyde, yeah. It sounds like. This is like those conversations in Lord of the Rings where Schmeagol talks to himself.
Yeah. I thought you'd like that.
That's so interesting.
Now, my next note is that we have a parking meter car chase that goes on for way too long.
Yeah, the action sequence not good, and the other redundancy about it is it's so aping the style of Tony Scott that it just has this is a director who doesn't have a take on anything, and it's probably his brief is not to bring a take to anything. So the kind of sun bleached look, the heavy machinery based action, all of it, but the comedy at the beginning,
I thought of it more as why would he have an idea?
Yeah, both apply.
You know what's funny though and she doesn't have a lot of lines, but
she's great. The pepper spray lady.
Pepper spray lady and the two cops who arrest him. One of them is Eddie Murphy's daughter.
Oh, okay. Well, now I feel bad about saying that he's probably getting off on being arrested by those two hot young women of color.
I like their no-nonsense telling him to shut up and get in the car.
Well, I didn't really care about them, but the pepper spray lady is excellent.
She was very funny.
I bet she's an Eddie Murphy ringer. I bet she's a Gilbert Gottfried, Chris Rock.
Yeah, right.
Come and bring this young black comedian into the movie because they are, and when those characters are good, he lifts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like the two of them together doing the pepper spray bit is really funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's cherry-picked a comedian he can work with.
Well, it's one of those moments where it's the total opposite of Beverly Hills Cop 3 because he feels invested.
Especially in these moments when it's with younger comedic actors, and that makes me think he's focused on bringing them through.
Yeah.
Because the other scene this reminds me of is the parking valet scene, which is the other
the parking valet or the parking whatever it is, the impound lot guy is fantastic.
Oh, the impound lot. Yeah, I was so on that. But he is good. That is another example. I
like the actor is what I'm saying.
Yeah. He's a good, and I think that there's another comedic performance. It's not an unknown, but there's another really good one in this movie as well. But we'll get there. I keep forgetting to look up her name, but I know who she is.
All right.
But speaking of names, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Big name on the wane.
JGL, baby.
Weird choice. Thoughts?
I don't think you're a fan, right? Generally?
I think if you cast him, you need to have a reason. Like he tends to play characters who have something that pays off, like a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way he's being used throughout this movie, but he has no secrets. He's exactly what he seems like on the surface.
Yeah.
And yet the movie, a couple of different times, suggests that either he might be the villain, or that he might be someone's son, and he's neither, and all he does in the movie is kind of speak plot points and tell people who their characters are. He's an absolutely characterless character, and not in the good literary sense.
Yes.
in the not good cinematic sense. But there's a sense of like you're watching the whole, or at least I was watching the whole movie going, well, they couldn't have cast Joseph Gordon-Levitt if there wasn't
if he wasn't a central kind of plot point, something that the movie fulcrums on.
He means something more to this movie than just what he seems initially. But in the end, he's actually even less than what he seems initially, which is really, it's just really distracting throughout the entire movie. I convinced myself that he was the villain, and then I convinced myself that he was Judge Reinhold's son.
Mm.
And I don't.
I knew he was not those things, so I didn't have to worry about it.
But all the talk about my father abandoned. And Kevin Bacon's son as well. I actually thought he might be Kevin Bacon's son because Kevin Bacon says I lost my family, and he says my father abandoned me. And I thought, and then there's a moment where they run into each other,
and they do not recognize each other.
They don't recognize each other, and then Judge Reinhold and him meet, and they don't recognize each other. And I go, why the fuck is Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this movie then? Just to read Eddie Murphy's resume? That literally seems to be it. Because they knew that bit would be in the trailer. That's why. And they knew it would be Joseph Gordon-Levitt saying that to Eddie Murphy. It'd be in the trailer. They wanted two big names on screen. That's it. Solved.
I'm going to look up the trailer and make sure that it's on there.
Oh, it's on there. You telling me him reading saying, hey, you came here in 84 and then you came back for that unsuccessful sequel and... Trailer fodder.
We'll see. That'll be a definitive point for one of us.
Yeah, he's like a human imbas.
Yeah, I guess I initially thought that they were going for sort of a maverick detective like Foley, and that they were going to connect on that level. It's possible that's what the movie was trying to do, but it's not clear.
He's basically playing Robin.
Again.
Except there's no reveal that he's Robin. I was waiting for the Robin-like reveal at the end, and it never came.
I like that name. You should use it.
I like that name. Penguin. That'd be amazing if you did like Batman 66 in the Christopher Nolan style. You know, Oswald, you should use that name more often. Wah! Penguin! You bastard. And we get the return of Taggart, and my note is, I guess we're not going to talk about Phoenix.
They talk about it.
But they don't. They say he's retired and he came back. That's not the same. They made a thing of him going to Phoenix. They don't talk about him going to Phoenix.
He says, I thought you retired. And he said, I did.
I thought you retired, and did nothing about him going to Phoenix.
No, he said, I came back.
Not from Phoenix, though.
But he came back.
And
we already have the information of Phoenix. We don't need it. It's redundant.
Maury Povich. Well, no, it's not redundant information. It's specifically omitted information, and it's irritating. Someone went through the script and took out all specific references to Beverly Hills Cop 3. And Kevin Bacon is...
He's the most formless villain I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I've watched this movie twice now, and I thought it the first time. And what is it in these movies, all of these movies, where the second you meet a villain... First of all, why is Eddie Murphy the only person that can figure this out? Like, he's got his Gucci shoes and his Rolex watch, and Taggart has never thought, man, pretty expensive stuff for a cop on a cop's salary.
And he's only there because he's an 80s icon. I mean, it could have been like Gary Newman in that role, or if George Michael, if he was still alive. Like, anyone who's associated with the, again, IP of the 80s would have done for this role. I think that's a big part of why he's so formless. It's like, okay, that ticks the nostalgia box, Kevin Bacon.
I was so excited when I first watched this movie and saw him, because I didn't know he was in the movie. And when he came on screen, I was like, oh, great. And then nothing happened.
Really nothing. And it also, you know, given that we covered the Tremors series and there were several opportunities for him to return to that, I think he's willing to do this.
Right.
It's at most a sideways move over to a Tremors video sequel. Arguably, in my eyes, a step up. I know the rest of culture doesn't see it that way, but...
We kind of already talked about it, but after he meets Kevin Bacon, I mean, he and the daughter talk the divorce a little bit on the way, but they go to the impound lot.
And Eddie Murphy sings along with Mary J. Blige.
True.
Which is a kind of Axel Foley combined with embarrassing dad shtick. Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of interesting so Beverly Hills Cop is the name. I know I'm not telling you. I think you don't already know. Yeah. This is going to sound like a really simple point, but it's going somewhere. Beverly Hills Cop is the name of these movies, right?
Yes.
And then the first two are Beverly Hills centric, and then the third one is more of an LA cop movie. But we've never really done Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And Axel F is sort of the first time, because, you know, the shtick of the guy in the impound lot is he wants to make it big in the movies. And I don't think, weirdly, we've never seen this before, where he's dealing with people who want to be in the entertainment industry, which is so weird given that it's LA, especially if you're going to go to Disneyland first before you go here. You think you would go Hollywood before you go Disneyland. But unfortunately, it's the worst possible timing because fucking Hollywood is over. It's donezo. So all they can talk about is fucking Jupiter Ascending. And that's presumably because Netflix have got the rights to it or something.
I assume, yeah.
So, you know, it's terrible timing on all accounts. But I agree, it's a good bit. And
I like that his daughter's fucking with him too, trying to make him explain Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter Ascending. That's a funny bit.
And it's even funnier. There's an even funnier bit afterwards where, I meant to find out. She's not the woman in the security guard he fucked in the Beverly Hills Cop 3. She's not called Saunders, right? That would solve the mystery.
Oh, now who's working? You don't know that he had sex with her. That wasn't on screen.
Okay. Fair enough. That's a more logical leap than he put his daughter in the witness protection program in Beverly Hills. Your idea.
First of all, you're characterizing it way different than I did.
You made it sound like she was hiding out from the mob.
Not entered into evidence, Your Honor.
But this bit where he basically, he's just riffing on one joke, which is Saunders is a funny name, which it isn't. But he does his comedic best to make it sound like it, and he ends up using the grandma voice from Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
Which I liked. That was that felt like
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, it all feels like Eddie Murphy. None of it feels like Axel Foley, but if it's going to be all Eddie Murphy, I want him to be playing his greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, if not the SNL 50, but the SNL he did a few years ago. Yeah, when he hosted after, it was decades since he went back on the show at the time. And
he did.
You could see that he didn't have the stamina for it anymore.
Yeah.
But he just had so many great moments. There's the sketch that I still watch this day, and it's such a dated sketch. By the time they did it, it was a reference to something that was like 5 or 6 years out of date. But he was like the guy on the scene being interviewed by a news cameraman, and it kind of goes into this refrain of they keep trying to ask him his name, and he goes, "It don't matter what my name is," and he just gives all the information, and then they keep saying, "Well, what's your name?" "It don't matter what my name is," and I think it's based on something viral from years and years ago. But he can still, like punch that stuff up, and this was a good one. This is pure punch up. It's like, it's not a good bit, but he's just gonna talk around it until it's funny.
Until he gets a laugh, yeah, right.
And that's good Eddie Murphy, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt comes in and he tells us what we're supposed to think of the scene. Father and daughter working together, in case we haven't figured that out. He's like the narrator, really. He's like the
Our
cowboy
Town?
from Big... Cowboy from... guy from Our Town! I was going to say the cowboy from Big Lebowski, but Our Town's a much better comparison. I saw... this is tangent central, but ironically, years ago as part of research that you don't need to know about for want of another tangent. I was doing some research on early American television, and I found a live TV production of a musical version of Our Town where Frank Sinatra was playing the narrator.
Mm.
And, you know, you read into the background of it, like he turned up like minutes before it went out live, didn't attend any of the rehearsals. And
Oh, wow.
boy, and he just winged it. And, you know, if you ever want to see how Sinatra winging something is infinitely superior to any other human doing it, watch this. That man is, I mean, you know, he's just, at that time, he was the coolest man alive.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that he could sort of pull this off, even though it's clear he doesn't know where he's standing, he doesn't really know what he's saying, and he's not doing the job he's supposed to, and yet it still kind of works because he's Frank Sinatra, and he owns whatever it is he does.
It's funny.
Magnificent.
Where are you?
Well, my next note is about Casino Royale style product placement where he names the watch he's wearing, just like Daniel Craig does in Casino Royale.
Who, Kevin Bacon?
Is it Kevin Bacon who does it?
I think so.
He names his watch?
Well, I think maybe Eddie Murphy names the watch for him.
Okay. Someone's doing product placement.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But yeah, this is the completion of the police villain arc that we've seen over the you know, we've gone private citizen to private police to now just corrupt cops.
Mm-hmm.
He's not an ex-cop, he's a working cop. He's not private security, he's part of the police force, but he's a villain. So,
yeah,
you know, this is 2025, right? We have no vestiges of faith or respect in the police.
Correct.
We don't need to pretend that the police aren't all scum anymore.
but if they're gonna be villains, I don't know, can't they try to at least make it more covert?
Oh, I mean...
Because when Eddie Murphy and his daughter goes to that party that Kevin Bacon's at, and Kevin Bacon, it's as though Kevin Bacon thinks he's talking veiled enough that nobody listening could, other than Eddie Murphy, could listen and then think he's a terrible monster of a human being. But in my mind, no, he's saying enough to tell you he's a terrible monster of a human being. He's not really veiling it enough to make anybody think that he's anything other than a piece of shit.
He's not even whispering it, like...
No, yeah, he's just, like, out loud.
The guy in the last movie, he would, like, whisper, I am the villain.
Yeah.
When only to Axel Foley, he's like, look, he admitted it!
Yeah. But that's a fault of both these last two movies where Eddie Murphy just sort of walks into a room and there are the villains. There are the guys that have been following him in the car for, you know, a half a day.
And then there's a sort of plot turn that kind of, that in-world sort of turns him into the tone of his acting in Beverly Hills Cop 3. Because his daughter essentially shames him for being who he is. The
parent is always the parent speech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he turns into, well, it's Eddie Murphy playing a character who is like suddenly depressed, tired of his own shtick.
He can't even complete his hotel
suffering from franchise fatigue. And that's the way he played the entirety of the last movie. But that was the actor, not the character. Now it's the character. And Eddie Murphy's doing a damn good... He's committed to the idea of the character this way. That's what I mean about when you see him in Beverly Hills Cop 3, you're like, this guy's lost the will to live. But he's not playing the character as someone who's lost the will to live. Whereas this is what the alternate version of that, where it's the character who's feeling this way, not the actor.
That's why this movie's better.
That bit of it is better. Yeah, and it's although the thing, I mean, it undoes itself because then you as the viewer start to feel the franchise fatigue with him. You're sort of like...
Oh, I don't know that I feel...
It sort of teases you with, oh, I'm going to do an accommodation scam. No, you know what? I'm over it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is why we tuned in to watch your stream.
Yeah, but it's the one moment where they seem to acknowledge that Eddie Murphy is old. Too old to even try to con.
Is it, have we skipped past the moment where he's... Or is it coming where he's tested the person passing with the same age? Can you believe we're the same age? Is that coming up?
Which part?
I think it's maybe coming up because I think it's with Rosewood, isn't it?
Who's he talking to?
I don't know. I didn't know there'd be follow-up questions. He says he's driving along, but I don't know who with. And he says to someone passing alongside, so can you believe we're both the same age?
Fuck, I don't remember that.
So it must be Judge Reinhold.
No, because he's not with Reinhold for a long while yet.
That's what I mean. That's why I wonder if we've not got there yet. Oh well.
But
it was a good note if I could only find it.
Well, one of the things that made me like this movie a little bit more was those earnest conversations between him and his daughter. Because to me, it was a valid attempt for this movie to see Axel Foley in a new light after many years had passed in which he'd failed. Because we don't see Axel Foley fail a lot. Certainly not in his police work in the other movies. He's always on top of it, smarter than other people.
He failed in '94. It wasn't his finest hour. Even though he had a cartoon fox named after him.
But the movie sucked.
He saved Disneyland. He saved not Disneyland.
He saved not Disneyland. Yeah. But anyway, that was one of the things I appreciated about this movie because that actually struck a chord with me and felt at least emotionally honest whenever they're together.
Okay. Yeah, I bet a lot of Eddie Murphy's illegitimate daughters called him the night this went out.
Whereas the woman working at the park in Beverly Hills Cop 3 just felt like somebody Eddie Murphy had picked out of a lineup of headshots.
Yeah.
She's good looking enough to be in the movie with me.
Okay. Point to you, so.
Ooh, let me chalk it up.
Yeah.
Now, I've been keeping score. I think it's 2-0 me, right?
Of all, yeah. I've
That's
been
all I can
score
remember.
Of those that I remember myself winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've made no salient points on this entire episode.
Good. I'm glad we're clear.
Well, I'll give you a positive here then.
Okay.
I think John Ashton is clearly ill, and it's very big of him to have the scene with the pills.
Yeah. Okay.
He died not soon after. He doesn't look well.
He doesn't look healthy.
And rather than try and mask that, he has a scene where he's trying to remember what he has a table full of pills and he's trying to figure out which ones to take. And I think that to me is John Ashton in a nutshell. He's one of the most self-effacing character actors. You look at what he has to go through in Midnight Run.
Oh, so
he's
good.
Effectively De Niro's stooge the entire time.
Right.
But we love him for what we love him for, so it's a nice tribute to what he's about as an actor, I think. And I think other actors would have too much vanity to play that scene. When we get out onto the road, there's a cameo from Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
Right.
And I thought they really missed an opportunity not to have either Drew Barrymore or Jamie Lee Curtis involved somewhere. To really drive the reference home. Believe me, and I know that because I've seen all the Beverly Hills Chihuahua movies, and there's 3 of them.
You are a father.
Yeah, exactly. I think only George Lopez makes it through all 3. Drew Barrymore and Jamie Lee Curtis did not stick around for either.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's taking place during this broad daylight attack, correct?
Correct, yes.
So, you know what this scene reminded me of, or what I thought it was trying to be like?
Die Hard with a Vengeance?
No. Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad? Which part of Breaking Bad?
When the two guys come and attack his brother-in-law in the parking lot.
Oh.
And try and get Hank. They try and kill Hank.
Okay. I don't think Mark Malloy watches television that good. I think Burn Notice is more his style.
2-1. What a perfect encapsulation of how he sees the frame of a camera. But it's funny because none of this makes sense. A broad daylight attack in cars in a busy street in Beverly Hills, where cops are easily going to get you. And it's funny, it was one of those, I don't like this, I do like this moments for me in the film where I thought, he's filming the action a little bit better than I would have thought he could. But the circumstances around it don't make any sense.
Well, we don't know what that Apple promotional film he made involved. It could have been all action, as far as we know.
True.
Maybe that was his apprenticeship. And after this, because they're on their way for a fake open house. Right?
Yeah, first he has a fight with Taggart in the office. I thought it was... I mean, like, the movie doesn't have time for it to go anywhere.
Oh, it has time. It chooses not to use it.
It chooses not to use it.
Well, how long is it? 155?
Yeah, 154, I thought, but...
Oh, well, there you go. That minute really
giving it a little more credit
that
than
minute
you.
means it's not overlong.
Once again, I'm giving it a little more credit than you. But I thought it was interesting that they have that moment where he asks Taggart if he's a part of this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't sort of ring true as to what we've seen with his... It's a reset of his relationship with both Foley and Rosewood, I think, to the original movie, which is, that's an IP cinema thing as well. Like, we reset and we find ways to get characters back into the mode that we first saw them in the movie that we're really interested in paying tribute to. Force Awakens style. You know what I thought of the other day? Look, too? Han Solo's more Han Solo than ever, even more Han Solo than he was in New Hope. I was thinking the other day, because we're about, you mentioned the open house we're going to, and that brings Surge back into the mix, and Bronson Pinchot. Yeah. And I had mentioned in the last episode that I would have liked his appearance here more if he was never in Beverly Hills Cop 3. Yeah. Now, I can't do anything about the fact that he's in Beverly Hills Cop 3, but the rewrite would be take him out of 3 and have him in 4, and then the natural question is, well, how does Eddie Murphy find Surge, who he met for a few minutes 40 years ago? But you see his picture on a park bench, on a bench that he's exactly real estate agent. That's so funny. And then going back all the way back to Enemy of the State, him running in, Will Smith running into Jason Lee. Mm-hmm. They randomly run into each other. It's like, hey, we went to Georgetown together, and here's my card. I'm like, that's 3 different ways you could do this meeting. You have to pick one, right? Either they're friends, they randomly bumped into each other, or he knew he was a lawyer and thought the evidence would be safe with him. You can't do all 3. Yeah, Tony, you can't do all 3. And this feels like a similarly kind of either or situation, because I'm trying to find her name because she's an actress I absolutely love, and I loved her on SNL. Do you know her name? The woman who plays the realtor?
Oh,
Nasim Pedrad.
okay. I was wondering about her as well because I thought she was so fucking funny.
She is so in a way.
But she's SNL connected?
She was an SNL cast member for several years, yeah. She had this line in... She's one of those comedians who never really fit into SNL, but because they were so good and distinctive, and she shows that here as well. She was on SNL for a while, though. She just had this really good line in Child Women. She played a range of child women characters, and she was their designated Kim Kardashian impersonator, which is just another child woman, essentially.
Oh, I do remember her. Because she has blonde hair in this, right?
Yes.
So she looks different. But yes, I do remember her. Yeah.
And man, she's funny.
She's great.
In a sense, I think she's kind of taking up all the material that should be Bronson Pinchot's, but because they've already turned him into an arms dealer, which of course is again my note. They're not going to mention he's into guns.
Yeah,
but he's not even really a realtor. Like, he's just making the introduction. He should have been the realtor, and it should have been his chance. That should have been his scene. But it hands it over to
her,
and she's great, and
she
does
is
it.
great.
But you kind of think, oh well, this should really be Bronson Pinchot's. If you're doing IP cinema, this should really be Bronson Pinchot's scene.
On the way, they do another race bit, though, that I thought was really funny when he was... What's he say? Eddie Murphy says, you can't be calling black people titty monkeys. Even with that accent, you'll get fucked up.
And, I was thinking about this because SNL cast members are now the supporting cast for all movies. Like...
Yeah, right.
A Gene Hackman movie it's not really a Gene Hackman movie, it's more of a Paul Newman movie, but Twilight, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like a neo-noir. I
just rewatched Twilight.
Yeah.
Probably 6 months ago.
And that is the best cast of any movie.
James Garner,
top to bottom,
Susan
every
Sarandon,
speaking role.
Reese Witherspoon.
You've got Paul Newman, Gene Hackman, Susan Sarandon, Reese Witherspoon, Margot Martindale, Lee Schreiber, James Garner, Emmett Walsh. I mean, there's literally everyone.
On and on and on.
It is the most immaculately cast movie ever. And if that movie were made today, 2 to 3 of them would be SNL cast members.
Yeah.
One of them would be Beck Bennett.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm seeing Beck Bennett in the James Garner role.
Yeah.
So I don't like the tendency, but because it's Eddie Murphy, because he's SNL, he can be the gateway to these performances, and she just really steals this. Yeah,
that's scene. One of my favorite last scenes in a movie. I love the exchange between Newman and Garner when he's about to turn around and leave the house, and he says, I could see your reflection in this window, and James Garner says, the things you don't think about when you buy a house. Fucking so good.
Yeah, don't get me started on how good James Garner is, and
love it
in that movie.
I feel like this is a good place for us to take a break. Why don't we take one more break?
Just to say that I think partly it's a powerhouse comic performance from her, a really good comedian, but also this is kind of what we've been missing for a while, which is actual Beverly Hills satire. Like, the real estate market is a prime target. Like, the Beverly Hills real estate market would be a prime target. You could see this scene being in the original, and kind of, I think it's all working together for that purpose.
Half point. We'll be right back.
Did you know that the Everything Sequel podcast has a sequel? It's our Patreon, and for a low monthly donation, you can get up to 2 exclusive, full-length, ad-free bonus episodes. $5 a month gets you an episode discussing all the original movies from the series we've covered on the podcast. And that's a lot of snakeheads. But $10 a month scores you the reboot to boot. Support Everything Sequel on Patreon and reap the benefits of amazing brand new content you quite literally can't get anywhere else. Got more money than sense? We also offer one-time payments that will get you in the driver's seat of the podcast. Maybe even the passenger seat. That metaphor doesn't work, but our show does. So join the Patreon and believe the hype. It's a sequel.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here finishing up with the highly positively reviewed Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
Add another qualifier, why don't you? Moderately highly reviewed. Moderately highly positively reviewed. The movie people settled for.
We were going out, and I forgot that I had written down another note. I love that the real estate agent, at one point, she says, "My own son's a real loser." You could tell early.
She's
Beverly Hills.
She's such a winner. I always liked her when she was on SNL as well.
Me too. Let's see. So he goes next door, and
your quizzical look is appropriate because they're about to go to a cartel gay bar?
Yeah, I think that sounds accurate.
At least they're acknowledging that they're Latinos in LA for the first time.
Luis Guzman.
The only Latino we've seen so far in a LA-based franchise is Hector Elizondo.
Yeah.
And that's it. But now we're kind of we're sort of doing Latino culture in the broadest possible strokes. First of all, the stereotyping of Mexicans as cartel gangsters and also homosexuals.
Well, it didn't have the same effect or circumstance or the way you looked at it as, say, Collateral does.
Maybe that's why the writer of Last Blood likes this movie so much, because it makes fun of Mexicans. And it involves the cartel.
He says he didn't write that part. Just the title.
He says he didn't write that part? That's the whole movie.
He said the only part they kept was the title. They changed everything else. Like he wrote some original script that they didn't use.
I'd love to read it, and I'm willing to accept him at face value. However, that the extract from the article you read suggests to me he's not a reliable narrator of what he did and didn't write.
You could definitely be right on that.
Does that article mention anything when it's talking about writing villains that we've got to try and shoehorn empathy for the villain in at some point?
I know, it's very strange, isn't it?
What is this rant that Kevin Bacon goes on about? I can't afford to live in LA.
Not just that,
but why is that a reason to become a corrupt cop?
He's got 2 or 3 of these. It happens more than once.
Yeah. And I think it is. I think it is like, well, let's see if we can see it from the villain's point of view, which is a good instinct.
I was going to say, it's as though they're trying to make him more interesting or more complicated or
than he needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's falling flat.
Because I don't, they're not. When they were writing Steven Berkoff in the original one, they probably, especially if they knew they had Steven Berkoff, it's like, actually specifically don't give this guy dimensions. It'll work better.
Yeah, right.
I've seen Octopussy. I know this guy's not capable of it, at least in his film work.
He doesn't need it.
No, he don't. No, not at all.
That's not the first time we've seen him. Well, we haven't seen him in this series, but we will eventually. But you know what I mean, because of Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yeah. Octopussy first. Any other sequel? I bet there's a Van Damme sequel he's in.
Oh, that would make sense.
He's been in movies with Jean-Claude Van Damme because I heard him in interviews taking offense if anyone suggests he's not a good actor.
Great.
He goes to the mat for
sticking up for him.
He's like, well, like he makes a good if rather needlessly aggressive point that acting isn't just verbal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chaplin expressed himself entirely physically,
Sure.
and everyone admired him. Van Damme does the same, and yet he gets derided for it.
It's not all he does, though. He does speak.
No, it's
And when he does, there might be problems.
yeah. So we talked about we see Maureen.
We do.
Best. That's
It's the wrong
we don't need
instinct.
We don't need to do that. And the other wrong instinct is that Axel, when he escapes from the police cell or the interrogation room,
Yeah.
he says, "You watch too many movies."
Yeah.
As he pulls off the double bluff used in all movies from the dawn of time, where
Also,
you create an open entrance and then you hide.
where was he hiding?
So they think, oh, where was he? Well, yeah, that's the other point, but but that's the classic double bluff. So if he was watching too many movies, he would have said, okay, he's somewhere in this room because he left that open to make me think he'd gone through there.
Right.
I've seen movies. I know that this is how you do it. So I thought that was again a fundamental misunderstanding of movie lore.
I would say it's easy to imagine once you see the chair up on the desk and the thing open, it's easy to get duped. If you're a dumbass cop like Kevin Bacon.
I'd like to get $1 for every time you said imagine on this episode. You're like Rod Serling. Imagine, if you will, a stream that looks like a movie, but is not.
We had no previous agreements for dollars for every imagine. I owe you nothing.
I'll see you in small claims court. Your Honor, the Everything Sequel podcast versus the Everything Sequel podcast is now in session.
What the hell are you two doing here?
Yeah. If you two can't come to an agreement, what the hell is the world gonna do? Goes to Norbert, Your Honor. I rest my case.
Goes to Norbert.
And the next note I have is about helicopters.
Yeah, going to the roof and getting on the chopper.
Because, and this is where I decided to mention the Die Hard sequels, because this was very Live Free or Die Hard.
Sure.
With the kind of one-upmanship of vehicles, which eventually will always get to helicopters around about the fourth movie. At what point do they start bringing in helicopters into the Fast and Furious movies? Is it about number 4?
I don't think I'm not saying there are no choppers in those movies, but, I don't think I remember seeing a lot of choppers.
They just go straight from cars to space?
Yeah.
With no
in between.
Interlocutor. Whoa. Oh, that's bold. Not even like a plane with a space shuttle on top?
No, yeah, we got a submarine in one.
What?
Oh, yeah.
That makes no sense. That's the wrong direction.
Nope. Submarine, baby.
A submarine?
Yeah. So good.
I'd say I love a submarine movie, but that's probably...
It's not a submarine movie. You misunderstood me.
Okay.
Fundamentally.
Yes. Yeah, and again, classic IP cinema fail.
Christopher McDonald?
Well, no, you try and anticipate this, because this happens in Dial of Destiny as well, and at least one more movie that I can't think of right now. But
not admissible then.
You've used plenty of them, by the way. Plenty of examples that are just beyond.
Well, you should have objected at the time, sir. Sorry.
But they seem to want airborne vehicles, and then they have to kind of reverse engineer it so that one of the characters can be or become a pilot in the course of the movie. Mm-hmm. So in Dial of Destiny, we had that kid who was, he was like using fucking buckets as
levers,
as a plane,
as flaps and shit.
He was doing a stomp version of flying a plane.
Live Free or Die Hard, they just make him a pilot. Say fuck
They
it.
just make him. Well, here as well, like it randomly says earlier on in the movie that he's a pilot,
Yeah.
and I just sort of think like, God, it's just such a waste of time to have to lay this groundwork just to do this. Like none of it matters. None of it's story based.
You got to have some action.
And it's like the thing. Like, does anyone care? The earlier Indiana Jones movies figured it out. They were just like, just deal with it in a line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to fly? No, do you? And then I can fly, but I can't land.
Yeah.
Well, that's accurate based on what we've seen. Done and dusted. And funny, too. Both times it's funny. This isn't funny.
Yeah, you're rewriting,
Boring.
though, because although it's funny in the third movie, there's nothing to see. He says, I can't fly a plane, and there's no information given as to why he can now fly a plane. But
No,
if you
we
do
had
the
this
work...
argument then. We had this argument then, and I contend he says, I can't fly, yes, land, no, is his line. And that's what happened in Temple of Doom. He learned how to fly, he didn't learn how to land.
No, she says, do you know how to fly a plane? And he says, no. Do you?
Mm-hmm. And he flies a plane for like 2 minutes before the plane crashes.
So your contention is that those 2 minutes where he drove the plane straight down into a mountain was enough to learn how to fly the plane in the next movie.
I think it's one of the many fantastical leaps in
Logic
the Indiana Jones movies.
Leap.
That is then referenced by a later line that makes it okay. And I'm arguing, let's do the same here. Let's all suspend disbelief.
You were all over the place. You're like Trump on fucking tariffs.
Trump on ... really.
Yes.
Oh, here's something I wanted to ask you about, whether you had any inside knowledge.
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, the helicopter sequence,
It is what it is.
That's exactly what I put. Of all the action sequences, helicopters are the most boring, I think.
Not Blue Thunder.
Yeah, unless you do what they did in Piranha 2, where you just crash a helicopter into the sea, which is pretty fucking good. But in the end, they just dropped a helicopter into the sea. But most of it seems to be practical helicopter, which was surprising and refreshing.
I thought that was good, the practicality of it. I even thought the crash looked pretty good.
I think I was surprised that most of it was practical, or it looked if it was digital, it was it sold itself.
It was passing, it was
passing practical.
Yeah.
That's the t-shirt. Passing practical. But then they land on a golf course.
And we see Shooter McGavin.
Right. Christopher McDonald.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has he been in a Beverly Hills Cop movie before?
No.
He feels like he should have been.
I know. Yeah.
He feels like a legacy character, but I was also aware that I don't think he is. But
I didn't mind as much because we get to the code switch guy and he really makes me laugh.
Well, I think Christopher McDonald is a great... I mean, it's kind of it's a cameo. It feels like a legacy character cameo, but he's not a legacy character.
He's even playing the moment funny. I just think it's weird that it feels like we're taking him out of a Adam Sandler comedy and putting him into this comedy.
I guess it must be a kind of backdoor reference to Martin Brest, because he was the sequel the surrogate actor version of De Niro's character in Midnight Run.
Yeah.
And those sequels that you refuse to acknowledge exist. To listen to an episode of Midnight Run. This has had no sequels. I'm like, beg to differ. Here you go. Here's 2 or 3. You're like, they don't count.
They
1
don't.
minute, 1 hour, 54 minutes, not 55.
54, baby.
Yeah, the code switching stuff is...
I should look at that. Make sure I'm right.
hilarious.
All right, good.
And, like the comment on comment on the black community that feels like it. If Eddie Murphy had a stand-up routine now, this
Oh
would be
no.
part of it.
Oh no.
57, 58.
58.
So this is the other problem, and this is what I hate. This is another thing I hate about streaming. You don't know how many of those minutes are
Foreign language.
the voice actors who foreign language. At least 2 of those minutes. So I'll give you. You can take 2 to 3 minutes off that.
I think you could take 7 to 8. Some of those are pretty fucking long.
Yeah, well, it's a global force.
Mm.
So it's like it's commentary on the black community in the 21st century. So it feels like if Eddie Murphy were doing stand up, this
is what it would be about.
Some,
yeah,
but this guy is fucking hilarious.
He's so good.
and dry and deadpan as well. Like he's not leaning into it too much. It is literally just he has a different voice for different people, and that's funny enough to sell it. He doesn't need to be manic. He doesn't need to be all Gilbert Gottfried with it. he just does it. It's great.
Well, I also just like the idea of his not giving up his stance. Oh, I'm just supposed to do this for the stranger because I lose my job after that.
Yeah. It's again,
like the
it's another
person who
one of
comes
those...
into a restaurant and says, just tell the bartender to give me some more vodka.
Mm-hmm.
Make it. I'm happy to charge you for another shot. No. I mean, just give me a little more. Make it strong for me. I'm special.
Another version of that is the comedian Peter Kay used to have a joke where, he used to work in a store, and he would say, it's £4.83, and they'd say, do you want the 83? Like to to try and help them with the change, and he's like, no, just I'll take it out. I'll take it out of my salary. How about that? I'll take it out of my earnings, shall I? But yes, so it's a great bit, and again, it feels true to what these movies are supposed to be about, which is satirical commentary on Beverly Hills, and the way it interacts with the rest of America, like a real blue collar town like Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really talked about this. I think we mentioned it in previous episodes, but Judge Reinhold is kind of kidnapped for most of the movie.
Right, missing.
Is it a greenhouse or something? Where is he? Is it like a
boat?
Is it like a?
Isn't he near the water?
It must have been memorable, whatever it was. Because you think it was a boat, I think it was a greenhouse. I suspect it's neither.
I think I'm right. Boat feels right.
Which is kind of.
But they find him and save him.
So, we talked about this, that each member of the Legacy cast has either a movie off or most of a movie off.
Yeah.
And this is Judge Reinhold's. And I was thinking, is it a weird time to do it, or does it have something to do with John Ashton being ill? Like, no, just give the screen time to him. Like,
well, I think it's for both of them, because Ashton's not in it much more, to be honest.
But don't you want them together or nothing? I mean, is this a...
We get a little of them together at the end in a recreation from the first movie.
Filmed entirely for the trailer. But that's what you want. But isn't that what you want throughout the movie? It's that curious Force Awakens thing, right? Where you're like, wait, you're not even trying to get Han, Luke, and Leia in the same scenes together? It kind of feels... And yeah, I'm sure it just boils down to availability, and if there is illness, then that could be a factor too.
I think for Ashton it was illness, and for Reinhold, I think this was the first movie he'd done in 4 years or so.
Well, nobody's knocking down his door, so shouldn't he make hay while the sun shines?
Probably, but I had this sinking notion that, he looks fairly out of shape. And maybe he came in saying, "Can I do not too much, please? I'm tired. Just tired."
Yeah, I really thought, especially given that all of Seinfeld is now on Netflix, I can't believe we didn't get one close talker joke in this entire movie. Because that is Judge Reinhold's finest work, as far as I'm concerned.
So good.
That Schindler's List pastiche he does at the end
Amazing.
is just phenomenal. I also love that he was so good at playing the close talker that Julia Louis-Dreyfus forgot that it was the character, not the actor. When she ran into Judge Reinhold at a party and she was like, he's the close talker. I was like, yeah, he played the close talker. And she's like, oh yeah, right, it was in the show. I was actually worried he was going to like come right up to my face.
Right. That's great.
At least this movie remembers that he's a gun nut.
Yeah.
Or momentarily remembers. Because he has the line, you can never have too much firepower.
Right.
So that must be a kind of...
Till he runs out of bullets, and then he goes back to his small gun to repeat the joke from the first movie.
So the fans don't cry, not my Rosewood. And then we start to go into callback territory with the stealing of a truck with the open door, and they've got a list of IP they have to cover from the Beverly Hills Cop canon.
Crash,
the first movie.
or a police car crash up.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the weird monologue that his daughter has, where when she's been kidnapped, and she says, he has a maniacal focus. And
oh yeah,
it reminded me so much of the Marcus speech from Last Crusade, but without the bathos at the end. Like, this would have actually been a better time, I think, to undermine that by showing Axel up to some chicanery.
Mm-hmm.
Do like a hard cut to Axel in a compromising situation. But it's like, there needs to be some irony there, or we just have to take at face value that Axel Foley is essentially the Terminator. If she's the way
a
she
super cop.
him.
He's the super cop that he describes in the first movie.
Yeah.
For Taggart and Rosewood.
Right. And then if we're looking, see what the Last Blood guy would have to say about this. If we're looking for Kevin Bacon's motivation of the villain, it seems to be storytelling, because he's like, I control the narrative.
Yeah, right.
What does that mean? I mean, I know what it means in a meta sense, but what does it mean for this
It doesn't
guy?
matter how many bullets fly, I can just make up a story about what happened here.
I control the narrative. Is that a reference to, like, the media? Or...
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what else happens at the end of this movie with the big shootout that I'm not a fan of in all cinema?
Feels very True Romance.
Today. Yeah.
It feels very True Romance, this scene.
I don't like that they're just going to CGI for blood splatter.
Sure.
I know what that it's easy, but just put those fucking packs on people.
Squibs.
The squibs, yeah.
Squib him up. June squib him up.
Just squib them.
Just June squib him. You know what these Hackman movies have made me really nostalgic for? Is that early 1970s blood that's kind of glossy.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's in the French Connection. There's a lot of it in Mean Streets as well.
Yeah.
And the blood is kind of shiny.
70s blood.
And it's not what blood looks like. It's as artificial as CGI, but
absolutely,
it's satisfying in its own way.
I agree.
Like it's like a blueberry pie has exploded on their face. And I like it.
And I like it.
Don't get me started on the French Connection, my God.
Oh, man.
That movie is, that's maybe the coolest movie ever made.
It was much later in life when I saw French Connection 2.
I'd never seen it.
Really?
Can't bring myself to do it.
You got it.
Maybe it's in our future.
It is. Oh, that's right. I can't tell you anything about it. The ending.
Yeah, don't tell me anything about it.
All right.
I've tried to watch it several times, but
it's a weird movie, man.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. We're going to see him come down off of heroin for a while. Take a seat, everyone.
Wow. Yeah, and when Taggart and Rosewood are finally together,
and
they apologize to each other,
right?
It's nice. Like, this is, again, like, well, if you're going to have them in the movie, have them together, or not at all.
make a choice one way or the other.
This is the first time they've not been together. This is the first time they've been in the same scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll maybe they couldn't practically do it, but I always feel like, it's like when you watch the Star Wars sequels, you're like, I don't think they were even trying to get these characters in the same scene.
No, yeah.
I don't think it ever crossed their mind to do it. Whereas it nothing but crossed the minds of the people watching.
Of the people who went to it.
Yeah. And J.J. Abrams is like, oh no, I just I didn't even think of it. You'd like that? You'd like to see that?
So
okay.
Han, Luke, and Leia, all in the same room. With that.
I thought you'd just find that predictable. And then Axel finally takes a bullet.
Yeah.
A real, not like a Beverly Hills Cop 3 bullet.
No.
But like a real bullet. Which feels like the sort of, I don't know if they're going to do another one after this, but it feels like the sort of full circle of, because it sort of begins with his friend getting shot and ends with him getting shot. So it's kind of like a full circle.
This one, he's like a Secret Service agent.
Oh, yeah, he does. No. I didn't believe your no. Again, we're back to the Made to the Mob episode since we've referenced that several times just in this series. Oh, gratin potatoes, that's the quality side.
Chowder. It's pronounced chowder.
That's a really good episode. That's a later episode, but a really good episode. To this day, as you know, I quote, "This show's a conceptual nightmare." And he doesn't die.
Well, for the first time ever, he's going to go to a hospital.
He's going to go to the hospital. He's not going to stay in the hospital because he needs to go to Norm's, which to me feels like where Eddie Murphy goes, not Axel Foley. I bet Eddie Murphy is a regular at Norm's. I don't think Axel Foley would know what Norm's is. It's a bit of a celebrity hangout, I think, right?
Well,
It's like Nate and Al's.
No, I don't think it's on that level. People, you just know Norm's.
There's a pretty iconic diner.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to tell you, while we're talking about an LA franchise,
mm-hmm.
my son said to me the other day, in passing, LA is the worst city in the world. And I said, why do you say that? He said, and he took out his fingers and he started listing. Fire! Dodgers!
Oh, I like this kid.
Oh, he hates the Dodgers.
Good.
He despises the Dodgers.
Excellent.
He's playing on a little league team now, and they're all like they're all real teams that they put them into.
Yeah. Team names.
Real MLB.
Yeah.
Teams, and they're the Angels. So I kind of tease him. It's like, how do you feel like being an LA team? And he goes, they're from Anaheim. No irony. He goes, Anaheim. They're from Anaheim. They're the Anaheim Angels. All right. Okay.
They're actually the Los Angeles Angels from Anaheim.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, he knows that too. But he's not going to budge.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you guys are playing court as well.
What do you mean?
Like little court TV, just.
Oh, completely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's the best negotiator I've ever known.
Objection, Your Honor. They're from Anaheim.
He knows. I'll tell you what he's really good at. He's really good at picking exactly the right moment to delay, by asking for a snack at just the right moment to delay his bedtime. And he makes it seem like he just forgot. He's like, oh, I was gonna have that peanut butter toast, wasn't I? That we talked about like 7 hours ago. 3 minutes from when he knows it's his bedtime. He's like, oh, well, yeah, there was that peanut.
I am still a bit hungry.
He was like, I was gonna have that banana, wasn't I? You know what? Let's just have them both. Let's just like I'll make like put it on a sound, making the sound, put some honey on it, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So suddenly turns into something that takes a little more time to prepare. Interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's an evil genius like that. But anyway, he goes to Norm's.
We finish with our. Yeah, he goes to Norm's.
Our trailer scene
with the
which
daughter.
We need
and
a
then,
time jump.
Yeah, and then we're with Billy and Taggart.
Yeah, and we need a time jump to get there, which makes it clear that it's not a part of the movie. They just needed to. You know what that scene is? Basically, that scene is, and it might have been this, and then they built the movie around it. That's a Super Bowl ad, right there.
Where he says, "Trust me,"
and the trailer makes it look like that is content from the movie, as opposed to the time jump something that happens after a time jump after the movie's over.
Agreed.
Yeah. Something we've talked about before, I think, in relation to House Party.
Oh, no.
Or maybe something even more contemporary than that. The use of the N-word.
We definitely talked about that with the
noticeable
remake.
I mean, Netflix, of all the streaming services, Netflix, I think, is cares the least about offending people, because Ricky Gervais stand-up specials air on Netflix, so that shows how much they care about certain communities. But I just thought it was interesting that is it just because it's Eddie Murphy that it's okay, or
I don't know.
The fact that they're discussing wokeness.
I'm trying to remember what it is they say. What do they?
Is this something we shouldn't be?
No, yeah.
As two white people.
True. But with Taggart and Rosewood, right?
Does it? Well, he says it a few times throughout the movie. I mean, he calls that guy a code-switching N-word.
That's right. Yeah.
So he says it a few times, like peppered throughout the movie, and I was just like, each time I was like, huh. I guess it's
okay.
Still okay under certain circumstances. And I wonder if those circumstances involve it being someone like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, it would have to be.
I think so. Because it doesn't even have like a trigger warning.
Mm-hmm.
Which there have been trigger warnings for less than that.
Yeah, right.
Death Sticks in Attack of the Clones gets a trigger warning.
Does it?
Well, yeah, it says contains tobacco depictions. And the only thing I can think of that's even closer to tobacco is the death sticks that guy sells in the bar.
All right.
Before Obi-Wan tells him to uses the Jedi mind trick as self-help. Love that. That moment's so good. I'm gonna go home.
I don't have time for you to relitigate the fucking prequels right now.
Think about my life. You're going to go home and reconsider your life.
Instead, why don't you give us a credit check?
All right. These are Netflix credits. They're boring. So boring, I ended up compiling nicknames. Like people's, those nicknames that appear in quotes.
Okay.
So here's a list of them. EJ, Butch, Smitty, Snoops, Nas, Spike, Moose, Ace, Tay.
All the classics.
Yeah. I made a note that Tony's Food Service was the caterer for all of these sequels. I mean, lasting that long in Hollywood, any business lasting that long in Hollywood is almost post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's impressive.
This is like the restaurant at the end of the universe or something. It's like, how did this survive?
Yeah, I was listening to somebody who had a good joke. What was it? I can't remember who it was, but they said, I keep watching that Miss Universe every year. Every year, somebody from this universe. Every time.
Yes.
Somebody from Earth.
Yeah. That's a good point. Speaking of jokes, how many musicians does it take to play a synthesizer?
7.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a joke. It's a real question posed by these credits. No, I'm afraid the answer is 9.
Oh!
You were close, though. Closer than I thought you were going to get.
Price is Right rules. I'm doing pretty well.
I also want to write the joke version of that. How many musicians does it take to play a synthesizer? Like, 2, 1 to play the synthesizer, and the other one to ask Gary Newman if it's all right. I don't know, something like that. You can use that format for any musician who steals from other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So how many folk singers does it take to play a guitar? 2, 1 is Donovan and the other one is Bob, to ask Bob Dylan if it's all right. Anyway,
that just rolled right off the tongue.
Oh no! That's it. How many the original joke is how many members of Ocean Color Scene does it take to change a light bulb? 1 and then 2. 1 and another one to ask Paul Weller if it's all right. Anyway, I've massacred enough jokes in those past few minutes to move on.
Agreed.
You know how I love family members in credits.
I do.
But then I didn't even think of this, but a rich source of that is going to be your special thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're going to thank people in your family. So the 2 other Malloys and then just the Malloy family as a concept are credited in.
Oh, wow.
The special thanks. And then you get the
Does he thank Eddie Murphy?
Well, he thanked him several by putting him in his movie.
For giving me a shot at something I probably didn't deserve?
Yeah, has this guy got anything in the pipeline that we know of?
I don't think so.
That's not a banana? Hey.
Well done.
Beverly. I remember something about Beverly Hills Cop. You assume that they're going to reenact that at some point.
I'll allow it.
In this movie, right? Or do an inversion on it?
I don't know. Ooh, let's see. Apple at work. He's doing more Apple shit, and that's it.
He's going back to Apple promotional movies after this.
He's got.
This guy is a fucking robot, isn't he?
He's got. Listen to this. He's got Johnny Walker, Where Flavor is King. Nissan, Shoulders of Giants. Tile, Lost Panda. Don't know what that's about. We've got Apple iPad, Apple at Work, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, and another Apple at Work, The Underdogs, like a sequel. I guess we're not done with this guy.
Well, Tile Lost Panda, I guess, could be a sequel to the Kung Fu Panda movies.
That's great.
Where Kung Fu Panda gets lost in some tile. Oh well. Yeah, and then my final credit note is that Netflix have a different logo for the end of their movies, and they're desperately trying to look like the Warner Brothers 1970s logo. You know, the
Oh yeah.
But they're trying to do it with an N, which doesn't work.
Yeah, you gotta have 2 letters.
Yeah, well, 2 letters as 1 letter, not.
Yeah,
well, the N's got. I think they think because the N's got kind of ridges that they can make it happen, but it obviously doesn't work.
Agreed. Is that it?
That's it, yeah.
All right. Well, oh man, now it's like a boxing match. Like I don't know who is ahead on points. We're both standing at the end of the match.
Split decision.
Yeah.
We've both made some good points.
Yeah, you have plenty of good points though.
Giving me a lot to think about.
But
and a lot to dismiss as well.
Yeah.
In equal measure, though.
So it's funny because all the things that you brought up, I recognize both the first and the second time I watched it.
Mm.
Some of them just don't grate against me in the way that they do you.
Clearly.
But it's an easier watch than most IP cinema to me.
I might agree with you there, actually.
I think it goes down a little easier.
I might agree with you there.
Yeah. And that's the last I'll have to say about it.
But it's not like a spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. It's like
a
spoonful of carob.
Grape-flavored cough syrup.
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty good, actually.
You know? Still cough syrup, but...
There's some of that in a flaming mo.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, going back to Seinfeld as well, doesn't he talk about, like, putting cough syrup with seltzer, and it kind of...
Oh, I don't remember that.
Can be quite refreshing.
It's quite refreshing.
Yeah, and every time I see it, I'm like, that does sound like a good idea. It's essentially just like putting like a cordial, making a cordial, like a sparkling cordial. Anyway,
all right. Well, you're gonna have to tell us what you think, everyone. Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Yay or nay? You gotta let us know. So find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. Try not to find us on X, but I suppose you can. What do we got?
you can.
Threads. We've got
Threads.
Bluesky. And what else? Something else.
We're on YouTube. You can watch our episodes on YouTube.
True that. All right.
You can listen to these episodes with visual accompaniment, and you can watch YouTube exclusive episodes where we rank the posters of the series we've done.
Or you could go way back in time and do our watch-alongs.
Yeah. It's a nice little sidecar to the movie.
The times of yore.
You're unlikely to be watching that movie, though, but if you happen to be watching Bordello of Blood, or
Texas Chainsaw.
Chainsaw 3D, or what was another classic clunky title we did? Amityville 2: The Possession.
Yeah.
There's some good movies as well. We've got Solo and that's about it.
Dirty Dancing,
Twin
Havana
Peaks Fire
Nights.
Walk with Me. I think Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. We did a young Indiana Jones that we were both surprised at the quality of because it was directed by Joe Johnston. Yeah.
Johnston, right?
Yeah, okay. Lyndon Joe Johnson.
Or you can write an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next, we're pitching sequels. What to do with Beverly Hills Cop. All right, that's it. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Blockbuster Video fucking closed.
Go Taggart.
What does that mean?
I mean,
and why would he use that? Why would he use that turn of phrase? Yeah, sure, he's lived through the rise and fall of Blockbuster, but he's probably also lived through the 60s.
Yeah, but, you know, he lives in L.A. It's a movie town.
Yeah, him and Maureen would go out on a Friday night. They'd get a romantic comedy for her and an action movie for him.
For some reason, I see them both sitting down watching Popeye with Robin Williams.
Because neither of them could decide what movie they wanted, so
yeah,
they were like,